We have come to the end of tonight's edition of News on One. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. From me, Tonata Kadila, and the rest of the team, it's good night.
The International University of Management, a Namibian university dedicated to its people's future, a hub of abundant opportunities.
We are IUM for life. We are IUM.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Business Brief, where we focus on news worth knowing on a local, regional, and global level affecting the Namibian economy and you as a citizen. I am your presenter, Morna Ikosa.
What if you could boost your most loved entertainment?
We're up in the ante.
Upgrade your DSTV package and we'll boost you to the next higher package at no extra cost.
It is uncharted territory.
If you're on Access and step up to Family, you get boosted to Compact. If you're on Family, step up to Compact and we'll boost you to Compact Plus.
That's an absolute ripper.
And if you're on Compact, step up to Compact Plus. You'll get boosted to Premium.
Everything is sorted.
Step up and we'll boost you even higher at no extra charge with DSTV.
For your weekly dose of African football news, updates and profiles, stay tuned right here on Sports Connect, and you can get to discover this beautiful continent through its football and test your football knowledge regarding the African game. This is Foot Afrique.
Welcome back. It's time to look at the business news making headlines in the online business newspaper, The Brief. One of the news stories in The Brief stated that the Bank of Namibia forecasts that the domestic economy is expected to grow by 2.7% in 2023, mostly due to the mining sector. The mining sector plays a pivotal role in strengthening the backbone of the Namibian economy. It contributes to the Namibian gross domestic product, creates jobs, and generates money from the government in the form of fiscal receipts as well as foreign exchange earnings, amongst others. Joining me in the studio to talk about how the mining sector is contributing to the growth of the economy and what it means for you is independent local economic researcher Rodney Twipe. Welcome back to the studio, Rodney.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you for having me.
Great. So quickly tell me, what and how much does the mining sector contribute to the GDP?
Well, I'm very passionate about the mining sector. Economically, the mining sector is a beacon of hope for the Namibian economy. Ever since the liberation of our country, the mining sector has established itself as a transformational economic sector because it cuts across all the sectors of the GDP, from the primary sector to the secondary sector and also the tertiary sector, because it creates jobs for professionals, semi-skilled workers, and also unskilled workers. The mining sector impacts us because we use our own natural resources to grow our own economy.
So what are Namibia's prospects with regards to mining, and how can it attract foreign direct investment and sustainable investment, of course?
Namibia has crafted itself as on par of excellence when it comes to the mining sector, especially in the SADC region. And I believe the prospects are quite looking on the greenish side. Namibia's mining itself and the mining sector has attracted the likes of a global scene or a global epics of zinc production, copper refining, and the likes. We can speak about diamonds, which are very unique to the Namibian economy. And throughout the landscape of Namibian economy, it has been a key driver of foreign direct investment. It has produced vast numbers of employment. The one thing that I can speak about and relate to is a 10% GDP contribution. This number has remained very much stable even through the times or the hard shocks of the COVID pandemic. Okay. We had some mines that have gone back and closed or literally take a step backwards. And what has been happening in a very much fortunate level is that the mines have rebound themselves, reestablished themselves, came out of care and maintenance, and gained that traction to come back into the production sphere. So one thing about mining is that Namibia is very resilient when it comes to mining.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell me, lithium mining has been really getting a lot of attention lately. So can you tell us how this mineral is benefiting the country?
I can give a historic story about lithium mining. Okay. Lithium mining in Namibia was quite very nascent in the beginning. Not a lot of commotion about it, not a lot of knowledge about it. And few years along the line, we have come to embrace this sector of net zero evolution of the world and the transition towards carbon-friendly technologies. Mm-hmm. What has happened is that the world and the big companies like Tesla has adopted electronic vehicles or EVs. They wanted battery storage that can last longer for these vehicles. And one of the key components is lithium. The lithium global market has been about $1.2, where the key component is the lithium oxide, which is the ore that is mined, and then some countries are refining it to a more better levels or more refining, and then that is where the carbonate comes in. So the value of the carbonate has tripled in past few years, up to $74,000 just for a ton, which is quite a lot of money, but that is when you have refined it. Right. And then we also speak about the global lithium market that has boomed to 3-point-something trillion US dollars. Wow. And then they are predicting a 50% rise in 2025 towards $6 trillion US dollars. What does that tell you about the prospects of this industry is that there is a lot that can be unpacked, and there is a lot that the countries can do to position themselves on the oxide part of it.
And Namibia obviously is one of them.
Namibia obviously is one of them. We find ourselves in that space, but we have to find the way how the economy can transition and position itself in terms of refining capacity, high industrial output capacity, knowledge in everything that moves along. Yes, thank you.
So Rodney, tell me, so Namibians are hearing about, it was green hydrogen, now it's lithium mining. How can fellow Namibians really benefit from all these mining activities that are commencing in the country?
The first position where it always starts is policy. Policies creates that enabling environment for people to thrive. And I believe our trust and reliance on the Ministry of Mines and Energy, the Chamber of Mines, have done significantly, and also the other economic researchers and economists have given a lot of awareness about what is happening in the sectors. Why we are bringing this up front is to tell the nation to go out there and be resourceful. Number one, the resources belong to the people, the mining claims, the EPLs, the concessions that are out there in the field. Because we are on the front where we only look at the market side. But the extraction side, that is where most of the people can learn a thing or two. Then you match what you learn in the extraction area with the secondary and the manufacturing field. So what can people do to learn more about lithium manufacturing? Find avenues where we can see the utilization or the consumption of it. Find avenues where we can see that it can become a replacement product. What do we do in Namibia that lithium can become a better replacement? If people elsewhere could discover that they're good to replace gel batteries with lithium batteries, what can we do? When big companies like Tesla reach out for contracts, they don't approach individual companies for nothing. They approach big governments. They go to the government of Congo. They strike a bilateral agreement. Then that agreement trickles down and benefits up to the miners in the field. And they give them hope to say, if we bring this product to a central government commodity collection place, we will sell it for this price. Then you bring in the standards, like as they do with cocoa in Ghana. Then later it becomes a nationally recognized product. That is what we can do, not just with lithium, but with different products that we are mining. Why? Because when we have a vision about something, it must become collective. Once it becomes collective, everybody buys into it. The policy makers, the market researchers, and the end markets find Namibia as a place where they say, wow, if you go to Namibia, even the taxi driver can give you more information about this product.
So, I love this discussion, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to how Namibia, because people have always been wondering, how can we benefit? Do you have any other last words that you can really just conclude with how, what else Namibians can do to really position themselves in the sector next year?
True. The key thing in business is always the philosophy that drives the country. When we read and know about other philosophers in the space of politics, but Namibians are gearing towards economic prosperity. And economic prosperity can only come when we have the philosophy of prospering, which means that when we open our mouths, what is that drives our vision and our dreams and hopes? And I believe mining is one of the key, like I said, it's very foundational, it's very big on. Everybody in Namibia should find themselves where they are passionate about the mining and the resources of the country. I have seen that trend in various African countries as a SADC citizen, that when you go to some countries, yes, we have a passion for livestock. But as you go along with your livestock, you will discover there will be minerals. Take some time and say, what is this mineral? What can it do for me? Namibia is one of those unique places where people have vast ranges of land size in farms. What can you do that can be more productive to supplement your agricultural production? And I believe personally, mining can be one of that.
Wow, great. Thank you so much, Rodney.
Thank you, Mona.
It's always great to have you in studio.
Myself.
So we're going for a commercial break, and when we return, we'll be discussing the Data Protection Bill and how you can protect your personal information.
When life gets busy, you can always rely on GoTV to make things a little easier. Upgrade to the next package and we'll boost you to a higher package for free. GoTV. Love it.
Welcome to the program. At the world's opposite ends, two wars now rage, one in the global south and the other in the global north.
Have you ever wondered what happens to your personal data when you fill in forms at various organizations? Who has access to it? And where is it stored? What is it really used for? It's alleged that some social media companies make their money by, amongst others, using the personal data of the users of these social media platforms and selling it to other organizations who use information for their own benefit. Anything that does not have a legal framework is open to abuse. It is therefore important to unpack the incoming data protection bill to understand how you can protect your personal information from misuse. Here to tell us more about this topic is Mr. Shoki Kanjimi, spokesperson of the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. Welcome to the show, Shoki.
Good evening, Mona, and good evening to your listeners. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So tell me a little bit about this bill. What is this data protection bill really about?
Well, Mona, this bill, basically the data protection bill, before it becomes a law, or when it becomes a law rather, will be basically responsible for protecting your personal information. Now, your personal information can be your name, your contact details, your addresses, and so forth. All that kind of information is what we are looking at protecting from external forces.
So before this bill, what law was there to protect our personal information?
Well, there was no law at all. That's why our ministry, the responsible ministry, that's the Ministry of Information, took it upon itself to really develop a bill that will go through various processes so that it becomes a law that will basically govern that process of ensuring that your personal information is protected.
So tell me quickly, what really necessitated this bill? I mean, why now? Also, I mean, we've been independent for so many years. Why now this bill?
No, one of times have changed. A lot has happened. We are in what we call the digital era, and really a lot is happening digitally. A lot is happening online, and that's why really it's now time for us to also be within the trends and to ensure that really whatever is happening online and digitally, we then also find ways of how to protect your information. That's why we really decided to come up with this bill to also just find approaches that will harmonize data protection.
So tell me, I know that you've been doing some consultation around the regions. I've seen that. So how will this bill be when will it be enacted? First of all, when will it be passed? And how will you start sort of implementing it?
Yeah. No, very well. We have already started with the first process, which is currently ongoing and which will end in February next year. Okay. So what we're doing is we're undertaking regional visits to regions to really consult the political leadership, the business community, and the community in general to really inform them about the importance of this bill and also to get their inputs so that once it becomes a law, really people will be able to understand it and it will also effectively work out. So there's really a large process also to it, whereby, as I stated, we start with regional consultations. Thereafter, our ministry will then take it to cabinet, of which the cabinet committee responsible for legislation will then have to review this bill and see whether it does not infringe on another law and so forth. And thereafter, the Minister of Information then takes it to Parliament, where he tables it for debate, review, and so forth. Parliament consists of two houses, which is your National Assembly and the National Council. So once the National Assembly has passed it, it then goes to the House of Review, which is your National Council. When they pass it, it now depends whether it will be passed with amendments or not. If it's passed without amendments, it goes to the President through the National Assembly again. But once it's passed with some sort of amendments, then it goes back to the National Assembly to debate and see whether really they agree with these amendments or not. Sure. Then it goes to the President, who then decides whether he's also okay, and then he signs it, and then it becomes a law. Thereafter, then we as a ministry responsible for it will then start implementing it and start with all the bodies that needs to be created.
That is very, very, that's quite a mouthful, but very important information.
Very, very.
Right. So we are ready for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Ref Check.
This BMW can talk and change its color like a chameleon.
The V10 engined Lamborghini Huracan Technica driven flat out at a racetrack.
The sedan still does not have an official name, and most technical details are still to be announced.
The Golf and Volkswagen are #1 choice for the Bosnian people.
Welcome back. We are continuing our discussion on the Data Protection Bill and how you can protect your personal information. So Shoki, tell me, what are the rights and responsibilities of consumers with respect to this bill? What is their rights in terms of this bill, and what do they need, or what is their responsibility? What do they need to do on their part?
I think it all depends on the information that we will be dealing with. I think their right is, of course, we do also have what we call the Access to Information Bill, where they have the right to access information. But at the same time, you also have to follow a procedure for you to access that information. So that is perhaps your right of accessing information. But then it's also your responsibility to respect the law that is in place, which will be now your data protection law once it's passed, where basically you cannot just decide to take someone's information and perhaps defraud them or use it to your own advantage. There will be a body set up, which we call the Data Protection Authority. Wow. They will be responsible for all this, all the provisions within the bill, of which basically if you want to access certain information, perhaps it's sensitive, then you will have to go through them. But by extension, through the Data Protection Authority, they will also have some sort of champions in different institutions who will be called your controllers, and also who will be maintaining and ensuring that really your information is it's not out there, but will be processed in a certain way. So that is how it's going to work.
So I'm a consumer now. My information has been abused. Where would I go to report this?
Very important question, and that's why we came up with this very important piece of legislation. And when you look at it, like I stated earlier, is that we are coming up with a body called the Data Protection Authority. So if you as a consumer feel that your right has been infringed some way, or somehow your information was taken for some sort of reason, you then have to approach this body and you report your case. And then they will also review your case and see how they can assist you. Right. And then they will follow the procedures as required within the provisions of the law.
So what would the, especially the business community or any other organizations, what would they need to start putting in place to start adhering to this bill once it's passed?
Well, what will happen is that once it's passed, of course, the body will be set up, which is now the Data Protection Authority, of which they will go on an awareness campaign to inform companies, to inform consumers and everyone, so that they know what they need to follow. So within that, they will provide guidelines of how that process will go about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to find out quickly, there are organizations obviously that have put things in as compulsory, whether it's information where people have to verify for them to have certain accounts and so on. What will happen in that case now, where, for example, let's say SIM registration, where people have to give personal information or verify from one of the telecommunication providers, things like that that are already mandatory for people to do. How would the data protection law work in unison, or how would people, especially people, feel aggrieved, right? And say, no, I'm told by law I need to register my SIM, but I don't want all my personal information there. How would you deal with that scenario?
I think, like I stated, what will happen is the minister also, once this law is passed, what happens is that the regulations are also are gazetted. So these regulations will really detail as to how we will go about with those process. And also by extension, those regulations will be enforced by the Data Authority, Protection Authority, the body that will be responsible for that. So if you are finding yourself in that situation, you then have to approach this authority for them to really assist you. But when you look at issues of the SIM card registration that you're speaking about, which is very important, I mean, we are looking at basic information such as your name, your address, and basically some sort of identification, your driver's license, ID or so that really they know who is the person behind that certain number, so that when a crime is committed, then we are able to follow up on that particular person. So basically the guidelines will assist us in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any last words that you perhaps would like to leave with our audiences with respect to this bill, what we might not have touched on tonight?
No, I think the most important thing to really indicate is that we want to call on the public to take part in our consultations that will be happening across the country, to really give their inputs, and also at the same time to just learn what the whole bill entails, which is very, very important, so that when it's a law, you do not come back again and say, no, but why did you decide to take upon this regulation or this provision and so forth? So we really want the public to participate and really support government in this effort.
Thank you so much, Shaki, for joining us tonight.
It's always a pleasure.
Great. So just before we say goodbye, let's have a look at the economic indicators. And this brings us to the end of this edition of the Business Brief. Thank you for watching, and we trust that you found this show empowering. Till we see each other again, from me, Morna Ikosa, it's goodbye for now.
Ghetto life for ya prame kangelela mokasika mnudano ashike kentungo kwa wedwa kolunyango kwa wedwa shaka shako va wedwa now I'm cruising zilimo BMA chekada. I'm from the ghetto, my life is not a mistake. I'm from the ghetto, my life is not a mistake. I'm from the ghetto, my life is not a mistake. I'm from the ghetto, my life is not a mistake. Nespinera o babita e clopa nyoka kosingera kapana opi roasted yete yo ngati they say kwato died we are back to respect this and I really wanna flex this I've been